Today's video is a must-watch for most people, including myself. So far, I have talked a lot about making money and achieving financial freedom. However, I have never discussed greed, the silent predator that waits along the path to wealth, ready to make you broke, scammed, and bankrupt. If you think this could never happen to you because you are smart, wise, intelligent, and experienced enough to control and ignore your greed, let me tell you this. No matter how smart or experienced you are still far behind the ever-genius Isaac Newton, whose IQ is estimated to be as high as 190, an IQ level almost alien-like. So take a few minutes and watch this video to the end. At the dawn of the 18th century, the United Kingdom's government debt had soared due to numerous wars. During this era, a British joint stock company known as the South Sea Company was established in January 1711. It was led by John Blunt, a man of modest beginnings but immense ambition. In 1719, he devised a plan that he believed would etch his name in history as the most illustrious businessman. He proposed to take on the burden of the United Kingdom's government debt. In return for the exclusive right to trade in the South Sea, the government agreed he needed substantial funds to achieve this right. He raised the capital by selling shares of the company to the public. John Blunt believed that this scheme would not only clear the government's debts but also yield immense profits for the company through its exclusive trading rights in the South Sea. Simultaneously, investors would earn interest and profit from the rising value of the company's shares. It appeared to be a win-win situation for all. Although most people didn't fully grasp the mechanics of this system, they eagerly invested in the company. It was not only promoted that owning shares in the exclusive right to trade in the South Sea would be immensely profitable, but many also viewed it as their patriotic duty to help pay off their country's debts. Consequently, the value of South Sea Company shares soared. Even the king invested £100,000 of his own wealth. Everyone, from workers to servants, joined in, and soon they became wealthy by selling their shares, which were appreciating rapidly. However, after a short while, even John Blunt realized that the system had morphed into a fraudulent scheme. The value of the shares was rising not because of actual profits from trading in the South Sea, but due to the buying frenzy from the crowd, which had created a bubble. When share prices increase, not because companies generate real profits through business, but simply because people rush to buy shares, it creates a bubble that will eventually burst. The South Sea Company had effectively turned into a Ponzi scheme because it was not generating profits through its normal trading activities, something John Blunt had concealed from the public. Instead, the profits paid to investors came solely from the money contributed by new investors, which is the very definition of a Ponzi scheme. However, as more investors poured in daily, the bubble continued to grow larger and larger. And lo, the South Sea Company did rise, promising untold riches to all who invested, but its foundation was built on sand, and great was the fall thereof. In 1720, some company managers who recognized the risk sold their shares. Word of this quickly spread among the public. When investors realized the mistake they had made, panic set in, and they rushed to sell their shares. That was the moment the bubble burst and the company's stock market collapsed. Thousands of people lost their entire life savings, and many, including John Blunt's nephew, took their own lives in despair. It took the UK nearly a century to recover from the financial devastation. Ironically, John Blunt did achieve his goal of becoming one of the most famous figures in business history. However, his fame was far from positive. He became a symbol of disgrace in the world of business and investment. This is where the most interesting part of the story begins. Many famous individuals had invested in the South Sea Company, and among them was Isaac Newton, the ever-genius of physics and mathematics. When the project began, Newton invested his entire savings of £7,000. Within a short time, his capital doubled and then tripled. However, being an exceptionally intelligent man, Newton understood that when something rises so rapidly, there is usually an underlying flaw, and a collapse can be even more dramatic than the ascent. Trusting his wisdom and foresight, he withdrew his money, but the story didn't end there. Greed, the central theme of this video, is always lurking, ready to deceive, distract, and make you ignore your own intelligence and wisdom. It will defeat you if you don't recognize and control it. When Newton sold his shares and exited in August 1720, the investment was still highly profitable. He watched as those who had held onto their shares continued to amass significant gains. This sight clouded his judgment, and for the first time, Newton allowed greed to overrule his intelligence. He decided to reinvest all his money. However, this time it was too late. A short while later, the bubble burst and Newton lost everything. He was left broke and bankrupt at the age of 70. After this disaster, people quoted Newton as saying, "I can calculate the motion of the stars, but not the madness of people." Newton was arguably one of the greatest scientific minds in history. He discovered and formulated the laws of gravity, calculated and mapped the motion of stars and planets, and analyzed light, formulating its fundamental behaviors. He achieved many things that perhaps no one else could have if humanity had never had Newton. Yet when it came to greed, even Newton struggled to think and decide rationally. When it came to understanding the behavior of the crowd, he let emotions take over and acted just like ordinary people, workers, servants, and common investors, instead of thinking and deciding as a genius scientist should. Isn't this shocking? Doesn't this hold an undeniable lesson for us all? Greed knows no limits. If you don't recognize and control it, it will destroy you. This is especially important for those on the path to financial freedom. Greed can easily prevent you from achieving financial freedom because it pushes you to take excessive risks and become impatient with slow, steady progress. It demands huge profits and rapid success, often at the cost of taking reckless risks. However, achieving financial freedom, as I have described in my articles on LuckScout, is a continuous and consistent journey that works in the long term while remaining safe and risk-free. You can reach financial freedom over time without taking unnecessary risks, following the method I have outlined on LuckScout. But if you seek shortcuts, not only will you fail to achieve financial freedom, but you may also suffer devastating losses, ones you may never recover from.